Alright, what's up guys? Today I have an Elemental Shaman PvP guide for the Burning Crusade for you all. I'm going to be talking about talents, gear, gems, arena composition, pros and cons of the spec, and just kind of the general playstyle for you all. I am not sure how long it'll take for me to talk about everything, so I will be having timestamps for each of those categories down below, so feel free to just kind of hop around to whatever you are looking for. Before we would get started, I do just kind of want to introduce myself for those who are unfamiliar. But again, feel free to just kind of skip to the part of the guide you're looking for, or just the start if you would prefer. There are not too many elemental shamans at arena in this expansion, so it is kind of important to know who you are getting your info from since it is limited. So these are my current arena teams. I've been doing pretty well. I think I could be doing a little bit better if I queued more often, but doing pretty decent for an LE, I feel, in this kind of current game state. For those who care about retail experience or think it's relevant for this X-Pack, I've been rank 1 in like 3,000 multiple times. Primarily around MOP is when I played the most and got most of my titles. Originally, I started playing in LE and around Kata, but I played a ton in Classic, got rank 14, so I do know the class inside and out. I've been wanting to make guides for a while, and I'm happy to kind of finally be putting one out. So I hope you guys enjoy, I hope it's helpful, and there will definitely be more to come, so let's just kind of jump into it. So we're going to be starting out with talents. The core is pretty simple, just resto down to NS, and then LE for the rest, of course. Most of the talents are pretty straightforward, but I will go into all of them. And there is a tiny bit of flexibility, but again, it's pretty standard for the most part. So we have your basic concussion, always 5 in convection. I like to always put 3 into warding, always 1 in focus, always 5 in call of thunder. Eye of the Storm is one talent people may overlook. Super important. You are going to be the kill target in the majority of your games. It is going to be really hard to cast, so this is really important so you can get that 100% pushback after you are crit to actually be able to get some offensive pressure out and get some casts off. You do have 1 extra point usually. I like to put that here. Fire Nova is actually pretty important, especially let's say you're against like a turbo cleave in 3s or like a heavy melee composition in 5s. If you are the kill target, you're not going to be able to hard cast a lot. You're going to be running around shocking, purging. And Fire Nova is actually going to be a pretty significant part of your damage. So this point is pretty helpful. Always 1 here, always 2 in Storm Reach, always 5 in Mastery. I like putting 3 in Shards just to be a little bit tankier. 1 in Elemental Mastery, of course. This is kind of the core, kind of the main point of the build. Getting that huge burst off. You will combo with NS a lot as well in those games where you can't just spam cast. Sometimes you'll split it up, of course, though. But yeah, this is kind of your bread and butter. This is, you know, what you bring the class for. And then 5 here. This is where a lot of your burst does come from. If you kind of, you know, win the lottery, if you have really good RNG, you can get a lot of extra burst here. So this is pretty important as well. And again, there's no reason not to put these 5 points in here. There's nothing better. In Resto, you can put 5 in either. I like to put it into Improved Healing Wave. I do find myself behind a pillar, resetting, or tossing big heals to my teammates sometimes. I like this. I've seen some people do Title Focus. I don't think it's bad by any means, but I prefer this. You're always going to put 5 into the reduced mana cost to your totems. Depending on your hit would determine how many points you put in here. You could have anywhere from 0 to 3, depending on your PvP gear. I have 2 in here, then the extra 2 go here. So if you put 0 here, you would put 4 points here, and then 1 point into Mastery. So these are a little bit flexible, just again, depending on your hit rating. You just need 3% for PvP, and then 5% into Title Mastery, always for the crit, and then 1 into NS. Again, a lot of your games, kind of the easiest way to use it is in combination with your Elemental Mastery for the big instant burst, but obviously it's more flexible than that, and it can be used as an off-heal a lot as well, too. So next, we're going to be talking about our gear. I know a lot of you guys won't have access to the gear that I have, but this is kind of what I use. So the helmet, I just use Cyclone. This is actually the one piece of gear, or one of 2, that I would switch, or potentially would switch, just for the PvP season gear. I've been actually using a lot of my points now that I have everything else on Arena, or on Arena Enhanced gear, just because it's kind of a side grade. It's not a big deal. I'm just being greedy. If I was min-maxing, I would have the Elemental PvP Arena piece here. But this is fine. You're always going to have this enchant, these gems. Pretty straightforward. And then just going down the gear, pretty much just PvP in every slot. Again, standard enchant here, if you didn't see it, just the spell power and hit. For the shoulders, I have the ZG spell power enchant. You could have your Aldor or Scryer one. PvP, 20 spell pen always, really important. PvP again, 15 Resil here, 15 spell damage here, 40 spell damage here. Again, just Mind Blade, one of the few PvE pieces you use. If you're unlucky and can't get this, you would either go for the Lower City Exalted weapon. That's the easiest replacement. Or if you have enough arena points and you can't get this, you would go for the arena weapon, which is really comparable. And this is the badge trinket. You're going to be using 12 resilience here. This is the other piece I would maybe consider replacing. And the replacement would be just the arena shield. It is a lot tankier. And again, if I wasn't wanting to build an enhanced set right now, I would also have this shield or the arena shield. I like this one better. I think it is overall better, as I don't want to sacrifice too much of my damage for stamina and resil. But again, if I was min-maxing and I wasn't worried about my enhance offset, I would have that shield. I would have it in my bags with 12 resil, and I would throw it on in certain games where I knew I'm going to be the primary kill target, or I'll be tunneled, or whatever the case may be, and just kind of switch it here and there. Totem of the Void, pretty standard. Your icon, your badge trinket, you're going to be using this with your burst, so you probably macro with your elemental mastery. PvP trinket, of course. I use the Kara rep ring as well as the Terracar ring, and then again just the rest of your PvP gear. Minor speed and 9 stamina here, 35 spell damage, 20 stamina here, and then 20 spell damage on your gloves. So again, pretty straightforward. As an elemental shaman, it's pretty much a safe bet to just go for every PvP piece you can get your hands on. The enchants are pretty straightforward. But again, I know some of you guys, or most of you guys, don't have access to all this gear. Getting arena points and honor is kind of a huge grind, and you are kind of limited. So if you're not able to get some of this, I would just look for PvE pieces of gear that have gems. So, for example, like my Resto friend, he has like these Resto legs from Karazhan, pretty good stats, male, 3 gems, throw in 24 resilience worth of gems in there. That's kind of what I did on my alt. I just looked for any PvE piece of gear with gems, gem slots, threw resil in there, and called it a PvP piece, and just had that kind of hold me over until I had the honor or the arena points necessary. So next we have our gems. You may have noticed them when I was looking at my gear. This is actually the part of the elemental shaman I was the least sure about. As like I said, there's not that many other Ellies to look at, and I wasn't 100% certain on how much it was going to be worth going for spell penetration. I basically decided there was going to be 3 options for gems. That would be either gemming for damage or crit, gemming for resil, going tanky, or just gemming for spell pen. I chose to gem for penetration to beat the resistance from Mark of the Wild and Night Elf Tauren. I didn't want to put more gem into pen for warlocks. And then the meta gem is just a 100% given how much we crit and how reliant we are on the burst. So 12 crit, 3 crit damage meta. I went for damage and spell pen here, got the bonus. 9 damage, and then I went for this 4 resil and 6 stamina. So again, kind of defensive here. Got the resil bonus, and then here is where I started going for some of that penetration. So I used a couple of these 4 spell crit and 5 spell pen gems, and then I think I maybe put in 1. No, I thought I had 1 of the just pure spell pen, but no, I didn't. So yeah, I just went for enough spell pen. I believe I went for 40, yeah, which was just enough to beat Mark of the Wild, which I think is 35 spect. And then like the extra 5, I think it is, from Night Elf and Tauren. I kind of forgot what the exact numbers was. But that was my idea, was just kind of a middle ground. Have enough to be able to purge and beat Mark of the Wild, but then still have some damage, still have a little bit of stamina and resil in my gems. Again, you guys can decide if you think that's the best option. If you find that you're not seeing that many resistances, or you're struggling more with survivability, maybe go for more resil. Maybe if you're focused on 5s and you find that you're not getting targeted that often, maybe just go pure glass cannon and just put 9 spell damage and all these. It is more of a playstyle choice. I've been pretty happy with this kind of middle ground I have, but again, I'm not 100% sold if that is absolutely the best. So next, we're going to be talking about the thing I get asked in game the most. That's just going to be what composition I run and what comps an Ellie can even run. So starting with 2s, I haven't really experimented that much. 2s just really isn't an LE bracket. Never really has been. In TBC, it's no different. If you're hard-pressed on queuing 2s, I would recommend a mage or a warlock as your teammate. They can just kind of control the match the most and give you an opening to get your burst off. For 3v3, we fare much better, but again, it's still not our best bracket. I do think there are some decent 3s options, and I think Glad is possible, though it's going to take a lot more effort than those meta classes like Mage, Warlock, etc. I've had the most success as LE Lock, and I think that's our best option. I actually have had the most success with the Holy Paladin, but that's more just due to the lack of arena players on this realm, more so than Holy Paladin being the best option. I would recommend a Resto Druid for those Tongues Dispels and just general control. I've had a bit of success also as Elemental Shaman, Beast Mastery Hunter, Holy Paladin. I think there's some potential to that burst comp, and I kind of want to mess around with it more often. But again, I would probably just recommend a Druid or even a Disc Priest for the offensive purges and fears in that comp. The last comp that I would recommend for 3s would be LE Mage Healer. The Mage can just kind of control the game and help you get off your cast as Nelly, and then provides exceptional burst windows. The Major Healer gets a CC on the opposite healer. You kind of just line up a one-shot and a shatter with Lust Up. The burst is pretty insane. I've only ran that a little bit, again, just kind of due to the lack of teammates that I have. But I think that comp is pretty decent. That's the one I want to mess around with the most and see what its potential is. I think that this comp would be the closest to rivaling SLD and could maybe be better, but SLD is probably just your best. For the Mage comp, I would probably recommend a Priest or a Druid again, but I kind of tend to favor the offensive mind of a Disc Priest, but Druid is probably safer, to be honest. Now moving into 5s, this is the bracket where you'll have the most success, not only in just your actual games, like winning, but just in like kind of getting people to want to play with you. LE is actually pretty sought after in 5s, unlike the other brackets. LE does have tremendous 5v5 burst, and in the chaotic kind of 5s matches, you are most likely to be able to get your cast off versus the other brackets, where you're just tunneled and have every kick and interrupt into you. I still find myself being the target of most of the enemy teams that we fight, but it is much more manageable in 5s. For 5s, you can mostly get away with any comp, but I would recommend at least having a Mortal Strike, a Curse Dispel, and I would say your best comp is probably LE Mage, Warrior, Disc, Resto Druid. I am currently running basically that comp, but with a Warlock and a Holy Paladin instead of the Mage and the Druid. So pretty similar. We were running with a Resto Druid for a while as well as the same comp. But that would be my recommendation. It has a little bit less burst, but it has more control and appeal. Again, in 5s, though, it's just messy. You can run most comps. Again, just make sure your team has a Mortal Strike. Ideally, a Curse Dispel, even though my team technically doesn't. Outside of 2, 3, 4, 5, which is what that comp is called, or what I run, 2, 3, 4, 6, I would probably, if you couldn't run that, maybe just get like a Hunter and a Warrior, or like a Ret Paladin and a Hunter or something. Just go for like big burst, kind of go Zugs the enemy down, just Bloodlust, and just kind of go full send. But yeah, again, in 5s, you just kind of throw out your burst when you can. It's pretty messy, and LE's pretty good there. So lastly, pros and cons and just kind of general playstyle. So LE obviously provides huge burst, and our totems and shock provide great support, and we are reasonably tanky with mail armor and a shield. For shocks, I do find myself using Frost Shock the most out of my shocks. That's just to kind of slow down these melee into kite. Earth Shock is obviously great for locking casts, though. You're going to want to focus kick macro with rank 1 Earth Shock to save mana to interrupt those casts. So, Polyspheres, Frostbolt, etc. For totems, you do get the most use from your Wind Fury for arms warriors. I do use rank 1 Wind Fury a lot, just since the actual melee swing is what's important for the most part. Save a little bit of mana. You're of course going to want grounding to disrupt those casts, tremor to remove fear, and you will also want to bind some less utilized things such as poison cleansing for rogues and hunters, frost resistance totems for those mages, earth bind to slow, and I do, again, like I mentioned earlier, use Fire Nova a lot versus Cleaves. It actually does do a lot of damage. So all totems do have a use, but those are kind of your main ones. The major downside of Ellie, like I said, is that you just have to hard cast everything, man. So you're one of the few casters that has to really cast, like spam cast to get your significant burst off. And if we get locked down, we can't do most of our damage, or even cast heals. If you get locked out on like your chain lightning, you can't even heal. You can frost shock or flame shock, but yeah, you're kind of useless. So most casters do have other tools to get their casts off, have more instant spells, or just even other schools to where they can cast more meaningful things if they get locked. So like a mage gets locked on Frostbolt, you can still blink and poly. So other classes do have a little bit better in that regard. So when in arena, your main goal is to look for your burst windows when you can actually chain together a few casts in a row, and then just look with that finisher with your elemental mastery and or NS. As far as playstyle for most matches, I open about 99% of my matches with water shield on, and I look to spam purge the enemy. I will ideally purge all of them if I can, but especially in 5s, that's kind of simply too many purges. It's not realistic. It is ideal to clean the main kill target that you determine, and maybe the target that you may look to swap to. Purging is huge, so once all those trash buffs are gone, you can instantly get things like priest and mage shields, fresh druid hots, purge that rejuve so they can't swift men, and things like that. It is a really big deal, and it's one of my top priorities. I think a lot of elemental shamans do not do that as much as they should. Outside of that, I just kind of look for my openings to cast, and just kite and survive to the best of my ability while using my shocks on the go. Again, most games I am the kill target, so just kind of do what you can, and just look for those windows where you can actually get a few casts off. Maybe you finally kited them long enough and they switch off to you for 2 or 3 seconds. That's when you make them pay. So in most games, in any games where I'm not the kill target, let's say they go on my warlock or something, I pretty much just go into PvE parse mode. Again, obviously it depends on the situation, but for the most part, I'll just clean my target, lust when my team is in a decent spot, and just kind of look to parse on them, just spam cast, do my DPS rotation. The only word of caution I have when it does come to that is that if the game looks like it may be a long one, if it looks like the game isn't going to end super quick in that lust window, and you cannot get a quick burst kill, you may want to avoid spam chain lightning on cooldown, and make sure you keep up water shield. If you are just doing your full DPS rotation, just lightning bolt, chain lightning, and they're still not dying because let's say your teammate isn't able to do his job or whatever, you're going to pretty quick. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. Maybe look for early drinks. There are a lot of games where I do pull away, 20, 30 seconds into the game. I identify this is going to be a long match, or that we don't have kill pressure at the time, and that they don't have that much either, and I'll just look for an early drink. Mana is still an issue for elemental, so just kind of keep an eye on that. I have 55 water right now. I always have about 60 to 80, so just make sure you have that as well. Make sure you are mindful. Anyway, guys, that does about wrap it up. I think I went over most things I wanted to. I think I probably ended up talking longer than I planned on, but I do hope that it was helpful. If you do have any more specific questions you would like to ask, or anything you would like to see another video focused on, please let me know. I am again planning on making more videos soon and more often. I am also planning on streaming a little bit more often, so feel free to check me out there. If you would like to see any, specific arena matches, or, maybe have me walk you through a typical game or something like that, just let me know. I know that there aren't too many resources for Elemental Shaman in the Burning Crusade, especially for PvP, and this expansion is kind of sadly defined by those meta classes like Mage, Lock, Rogue. So hopefully this was a little bit helpful for you guys. Maybe it even gave you a little bit of hope to gain a little bit of arena rating, obviously depending on what your goals are. But yeah, if you did find this helpful, or if you enjoyed, please consider tossing a sub. It would mean a lot. And yeah, hope you guys have a good one.